Hey all, welcome to another episode of Price on Purpose. I am your host, Stacey Price, and I am joined with the amazing Jiselle, is it Alleyne Clement?
Correct. 10 points.
Thank God, I'm winning this game so far.
Yes.
All right. So the awesome thing about the Jiselle, she's a lead empowerment speaker, a vision coach, and mentor through her
Yes.
consultancy called Pearls of Great Price Empowerment Services. You know I love it already. You got price in there.
Yes.
I was like, it's meant to be. And you're focused on, or you're also the founder of Group Ladies in Waiting, a group developed for the development of Christian single ladies. We're going to have to talk about that. I love that already too.
Yes.
And I love that you also focus on transition management. That's actually something I really wanted to speak with you today about, as well as many other things as far as to develop women. Jiselle, welcome.
Thank you, Stacey. It's a pleasure to be here. Finally.
Yes. As we were talking a few moments ago, it's like I've scheduled some of these shows, out, and I'm like, okay, what's today? Okay.
I know, but I'm glad to be here.
I'm glad to have you. So tell me, let's start here. Like, how have you been dealing with these times? You're in Trinidad?
I am in Trinidad and Tobago, and
Nice.
we have been, like everyone else, trying to manage, trying to vaccinate, trying to cope. They are actually in Parliament right now debating whether we have been under a state of emergency, so they're
Oh, wow.
debating ending that now. So we're just like everyone else, trying to cope
transition.
as best as we can, and they're in transition.
I can understand. Yeah, I think actually I wanted to ask you too about this. So for you guys in Trinidad, do you have something going on where a lot of people are leaving their jobs?
Not as much as I've seen elsewhere. The goal is, the hope is that we don't have that kind of exodus, but trickles here. Different industries will have different numbers, but not in that mass way as I've seen in other
Yeah.
places. So we're pretty good with that. We've been spared having to do that. Yes.
All right, that's good because right now we have this thing going on. It's called the Great Resignation, as they've labeled it in the business world, where a lot of people are shifting either into different areas of business or becoming entrepreneurs
Yes.
or literally I've seen also going towards companies that more so align with their values. So I wanted to actually talk to you about that. I actually gratefully saw the episode that you did online here with Dawn Long. She's a coach. You were on her show. I believe it's called Your Transformation Journey.
Yes.
And you spoke a little bit about what happened, I guess, in your 40s or so, or your transition.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about what happened to you in that time?
So a lot of people now, they are experiencing what I experienced pre-COVID, which is job loss. And so that initialized the whole concept of transition management. Although transition management in my previous life has been the core of what I did. I dealt with training and development and leadership development with the organizations that I work. I was responsible for that. So now that I'm on the other side of the coin, as it were, I had to use all those tenants and apply it to my life. Okay, so how am I going to make this transition? And so it was not an easy transition because I didn't expect to be having to deal with going through a transition. But this is why I quote unquote, that's my message to women, that you have to be able to manage your transitions in order to successfully go to the next stage in life. And that's where we get stuck as women. I'm speaking about women because that's my main target audience.
Right.
But a transition is for everybody. Men deal with transition as well.
Right.
But that's where we get stuck. And particular to women, it's the emotional aspect of the transition that impacts us in a greater manner, I believe, and I strongly believe this, than with a man. He's not as attached. He can easily move. Okay, next. What's next for me? Okay, but for a woman, and as I tell people, I invested 16 plus years of my life building this career. I had a plan and I worked that plan, Stacey. And so to now be told we don't want you anymore, and it was not as easy. I'm now a 40-something-year-old, and it's not as easy as before to bounce back. The contract world. It's exciting, but at the same time, when your contract ends, it ends. But before, I would easily, whatever, I'm young, get another job. But this time it was different. It was not the same, easy to bounce back. And so after 2 years, a 2-year delay, a 2-year period where I just stopped existing, and I really literally, I couldn't believe that this was Jiselle, poised to lead an organization one day, and then the next day, in one fell swoop, I'm unemployed. And so 2 years went by until I started to, okay, Jiselle, what are you going to do? And there I say that period saw the building blocks, the formation of the building blocks that I teach about now on transition management. And I started to come out of it, and here I am today.
Man, it's so interesting because I think, I'm grateful that you're here again on the show, but also because I think this show will help a lot of people that are transitioning here in America to, not only, find something that aligns with their values, but actually dig into the things that, whether you say the universe or God has provided to us to actually use to help us in that time. So what did you, I want to speak about, I guess, the moment of transition a little bit more there, because I think, it's so interesting that you were in leadership. That's, what I was doing too. I actually just walked out of my job last year. I quit. And, some people were like, are you insane? People are looking for work and can't find work. And you walked away from something that was paying you very well. Why would you walk away? And some people don't understand that piece where either, I feel like the universe is going to do something and give us hints. And then sometimes it's going to be by force, whether it's on our terms or not. So in that moment, how did you find your tools? How dark was that time for you? And was it dark?
So I would describe dark as a period of questioning. So I believe in God. I'm a woman of faith. And so that point, that crossroads, was that time where I questioned God. As I said, I had a plan that I believe was God-given. And up to that point, the plan was working in my favor from step to step. And I just continued ascending. I was poised for the top. I couldn't be stopped. So I thought. So at that first step, that first hurdle after that 2-year period, and I said, okay, Jiselle, you can't continue like this. I started to have some conversations with God. If I say I believe in you, and I say that you are ordering my life and that there is a plan and a purpose for my life, this career that I believe you gave to me, what's going on? Why am I at this point? And that's when, Stacey, the clarity began to come. Firstly, 16 plus years of training in what we call the secular environment, the corporate world, as opposed to a Christian or a church environment. We use the term a secular environment. So the first question, was that for naught? By that time, I had 3 degrees and I was in the middle of my PhD. And to lose a job, it's like, how am I going to finish paying for this? And so why did you allow me to become so qualified and allow me to go through all this training and allow me to advance in my organization to be at this point. And that's where one of the pillars of transition management became crystal clear. It's called competency transference. In the organization, we speak about competency development. And coincidentally, that was the focus of my PhD studies because I was focused on competency development for female leaders within the organization. So that is what I was studying. But he was like, okay, look at this. And I like to tell people conversations with God is not always, no, it's simple.
Right.
Break it down. Simple. Okay.
Right.
Look at this. So I allowed you to develop this skill set. So what are you going to do with it? Just let it go by the wayside, or can you transfer those competencies into where I'm taking you now, which is the speaking and the coaching and the mentoring? I said, okay, let me see. So I made a list, and this is what I tell people to do when they are in that initial stage of transfer, and this is one of the steps. You do what is called a competency analysis. You're analyzing your toolkit of competency. So I made a list of all my competencies that 16 plus years within the organization allowed me to acquire. And then I wrote a second list. What do I need for this point in my life? Can any of these competencies be transferred and continue on in this journey with me? And I started to say, okay, yeah, all right. And I did that. The second question you have to ask yourself, Stacey, okay, so you have a few that you have. Are you missing any competencies that you would need at this point in your life? So I looked at that first list again, and I said, okay, I'm seeing some gaps here. And you write what competencies you're missing. And then the third step is a new list that you would create with the competencies that you can move forward with the competencies that you have realized you are missing and that you need to acquire to add to this new list of competencies. And so you will then develop a plan of acquisition of these missing competencies, and therein would start your steps into transitioning seamlessly. And what people don't realize, because at that point you're just thinking, oh my God, I've been fired, or even if you chose to leave your job, what now? I don't have any skills. I don't have any skills. When the pandemic hit, I don't have any skills. I don't have any skills. Yes, you do.
Right.
Yes, you do. You are equipped. And so that was one of the steps that I had to go through that marked my transition back into my purpose, what I believe I was called to do. And I'm doing the same thing I did in the organization for 16 plus years. Just reworked, reframed, a different audience, a more specific audience, but I'm still in training and development and leadership development. Yeah?
Heck yeah. Like, that's beautiful, Jiselle. Like, I love how you broke it down, because, you know, that's something I had to realize too. And it's so funny. My girlfriend was just like, make a list. And I'm like, I don't need a list. And she's like, no, make a list.
Yes.
I think sometimes we get distracted by the noise.
That's right.
We see everything. We see up, down, left, right. What happened? Why is it happening? And we get distracted.
Yes.
And we forget that. And even sometimes, Jiselle, I feel like we ask other people, which is not necessarily wrong.
But at that point,
it's so sensitive.
Yeah.
You're so, I don't want to say fragile. Maybe that is the word, but it's like you're so, I don't know, you're like glass a little bit, you know, because anything can get in. Anything. Yes. And you can get a little distracted, like, okay, I'm going to go here. But then sometimes we will repeat what we just left and we don't actually grow.
That's it.
So it's just so interesting. And I love your terminology and, on how to make that list. I wanted to ask you something here because I think, this is an important moment because this is something I had to actually realize. And I actually have something literally on my wall here to remind me. In that time period of your questioning, how did you realize and how did you handle how you identified based on your function and not on your essence?
Well, at that point, everything was shaken. It's as if, the rug was pulled from underneath you. At that point, I questioned, firstly, my identity. It was wrapped up in my function, my role and function within the organization. So now I basically was tabula rasa. I had no role and no function. So that period of questioning was also a period to reframe my role and my function, because at that point I didn't know, okay, what was the point? Who am I called to? I use the term called. Everyone, we are all called to someone, whether within the organization, whether within your family, whether within your community, your life impacts another. And so at that point, I didn't know if my life impacted anyone anymore as it did before. And I was confident that I made an impact before. So the period of questioning, I had to pause and reassess my role, reassess what my function was. So that's why I now say I'm really doing the same thing. But it's no longer dependent on an organization or a person as it was before. The organization was my cushion. And so when the organization was taken away, my identity was taken away. Now it's in the reverse. I know and I'm sure that separate and apart from any organization, any group of people, let's just say Pearls of Great Price Empowerment Services or Ladies in Waiting, next year we say, okay, we're calling it today, that's it. Do I again go into a tailspin? No. Separate and apart, I am sure of my role and my identity because of that in transition that I went through 3 years ago. Yeah, now 3 years ago.
Wow,
Yep.
2 and 3 years ago. That's fresh.
That's
still
fresh,
is.
Giselle. It
Oh my
still
God,
is,
you look back like, what?
Yep.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I went through that too. And that's why I have that reminder up for me because, I absorbed my upbringing. My parents are born and raised in Jamaica, but we live here in New York. And my identity from a very young age was of serving or doing something. You cook, you clean, or whatever it is you do.
Yes.
So that's where I started to attach myself to the ability of doing, because I was in that act of, okay, I wake up, I do this, I do this, I do this. So therefore my value is just that. I took that identity and I applied it to my work. And I realized that, even after I left my job, I didn't understand what my skills were. I just knew I was good at certain things, but I didn't know what that meant. Like, I didn't know who am I? Like,
yes, that's the question.
And it's just so interesting to get to that point because I had to think. I'm 36 now, Giselle. I had to think about it. So many birthdays come and go. You're like, what? So I'm 36 now, and I feel like I'm just getting started with who I am. Yes. Is that how you felt in your moment of questioning?
Exactly. So at the time, 40, they say life begins at 40, but I was going through a nightmare at 40. But eventually, and you attached another word to identity, your value. And that's why I said for women in transition, we have these words, our identity, our value, our function is wrapped up. For example, in your role and function as a mother, you place heavy value.
Right.
So that's why when children grow up and they leave home and they go through that emptiness syndrome, that's a transition. And so you have to deal and manage with that transition. Some do it better than some. It's because of that same thing. Our role, our identity, value is all wrapped up in that. And
Yeah.
so once we understand that, separate and apart, you are still valuable. The position, the environment does not make you valuable per se. You are already valuable.
Absolutely.
You will fare better. And so, yes, the short answer, I went through that as well. Questioning my value and my worth, another W word that we women
was
have
just
to,
about to say.
bring it, grapple with. What's my worth? Am I worth
Literally.
anything anymore?
Worth.
Yeah.
Isn't that funny?
And your worth
Worth.
increases or decreases based on if somebody says something, or if they applaud you, or if they appreciate you. So the job was that for me, that source of applause and kudos and pat on. Yeah, Giselle, you're doing well.
Oh my
and
goodness.
so when it was taken away, the worth decreased.
Yep.
I had to understand and reframe my thinking. Your worth is not in that job.
Right.
Find your source, center yourself. Whatever will happen, you are still worth much.
Oh, absolutely. Amen. Yeah, like I think that's the thing too, because I had to realize that it was my worthiness
Yes.
and ability to receive that I had challenges with. And,
Yes.
I'm just starting to work on it. I'm like, this has been going on this whole time. I had no idea. And I think so many women, because they identify as what they feel or they know as, for example, a good mother,
Right.
a good aunt, or a
Yes.
good whatever it is. But you're absolutely right that women do struggle in these areas, and it takes some connecting to thyself to figure out
Yeah.
that they're good without the
Without.
label.
Yep. Yep.
It's so interesting, like that transition into self,
Yep.
I guess would be the wording, because it's just so interesting. Wouldn't it be an interesting world, Giselle, if we learned this in school about how to
Very
study
early. Yes.
our
Yes.
worthiness, and that it's not.
There's so many variables connected to our understanding of that we sometimes have to wait till we're later in life to kind of stumble upon it. Oh, okay. Yeah. But yeah, if we start earlier, it would be so much easier to navigate.
Like, oh, tell me what you're working on. Oh, I'm just working on my worthiness. Oh yeah, girl, me too.
What's
Like,
that? But now that you've said it, this is a conversation that we need to start with our young girls early. Work on your worthiness. So you mentioned that I also function as leader of Ladies in Waiting, which is the group of single Christians preparing for marriage. And that's one of the concepts that we speak about, your worthiness, examining what it is, examining the source of your worthiness, and now working on your worthiness. Marriage is your desire, yes, and God will honor that desire, but purpose is the bigger picture here. Why did God place me on planet Earth? I need to find it out, and I need to pursue it. And your worthiness is all part of that pursuing of purpose. So you're so correct. We need these conversations in different pockets where women gather.
Yeah, because something else I think you hinted upon in the last interview, and I was like, there's this awesome person that I work with and work for named Maria Daniel. She does a podcast called Successfully Chaotic. She tells a story about how she would show up to work with her world crashing down, in a sense, but showing up to work as everything's all right.
Everything is all right.
And I think we women do that a lot. I've done it. I've been going through, breakups and craziness and trauma and everything, but I feel like I have to leave our identity or what I'm going through at the door to be
Yes.
this other version and kind of separate that. Do you deal with women that go through this? And if so, how does somebody deal with this type of energy?
So what I have developed is something called the She Leadership Development. Because remember, part of my academic pursuit is leadership, and so that's part of my study. What kind of environment is a healthy environment for women to function? Unfortunately, when women enter the organization, we try to mirror what we see the men do. And we feel that we have to take on the persona of men in order to be successful at the organizational and especially leadership, top leadership level. So the competition and all of that, we adopt those characteristics when it's not innate to us. And so if we focus on developing a healthy organizational environment, and this is the formal organization or any other type of organization where we support, the focus is healthy support of our sisters, of each other as we ascend into top leadership position. You would not have to come and put on your face and separate what you're going through at home in order to function, because that's frowned upon. You're chided for showing your emotion as a top woman leader. You wouldn't have to do that in the She leadership environment where we look at really tapping into what it means to be a woman in leadership. So that's what I talk about from that perspective when I speak about issues like that women would have to deal with as they go into the public sphere. Yes? We have to reframe our thinking. We don't have to be like the men to be successful. We don't have to adopt how they do things in order to be successful. Yes, we can learn, and yes, we can use some of those techniques. For example, the networking. You know, the old boys club is always always functioning. You just have to pick up your phone, you just have to send an email, and somebody from the old boys network is ready to help you. We're not like that. So that's something we can adopt and look at incorporating. But I'm speaking about the emotion. Again, we were told that we have to separate our emotions, leave our emotions at home in order to be successful. I am saying that we have to know how to use our emotions to our advantage and use it to create real healthy support systems for each other.
Oh my goodness, I should have had you on my other show. I got another show where called Quality Theory that I'm starting. Really about bringing the emotions back into the workplace in a healthy way. Healthy,
sounds awesome.
Way.
Yes.
Yeah, because I think that's the thing. I like I said, I used to do that where I would just leave who I am in a sense or what I'm going through at the door, and it's just so interesting because that became normal.
Normal, yes.
That's the wild part, because I think just now we're starting to, I don't know if you're familiar with Seth Godin in marketing.
Yes.
Do you know? Okay. Yes. You see how he talks about like the, emotions and really connecting with your people. And it's so interesting, Jiselle. It's like we're just now
realizing coming back. Yes.
It's like, oh my God, I'm human. I'm not an android. Like I'm not a robot. It's so interesting.
That's right. Two things you said there, Stacey. So when you leave your emotions at home and you step in, what are you offering? What are you really presenting to your sphere of influence? And so that's why when there is a separation and you leave the door of the organization, you meet your emotions at home or wherever. And that's the clash that throws us for a loop and kind of puts us in that stuck position. And that's where we need help to transition. Because you still have to deal with the emotions. Yeah. You still have
just put it back there, put it in a jar. I don't see it. Do you see it?
Yep. So, oh wow, and it's, as you say, it's as if they're now getting the light bulb. No, we don't have to separate it. We just have to know how to use it.
Yes, I love that. Sorry, my VPN disconnected. I was just like, no, such a good conversation. But yeah, I love that you're saying how to use it, because especially for women, I feel like, that's the thing. It's like, that's why I had to ask myself, like, why would you not be yourself? What what is what is the fear associated, like literally, because I spent over 17 years in customer care, and I worked with leadership and coaching representatives, and I've been on the phones and et cetera in that avenue. And I knew that I wanted to be a coach for people that were on the phone, because for some reason, Jiselle, I don't know why. I just know it was given, it was provided, and I said, okay, got it. This is mine. All right.
Run with
But
it.
yeah, I was like, okay, I got to do this. It keeps coming back. When somebody would be on the phone and there's this, I don't know how to say it. There's a synergy that happens. There's a connection that happens when someone is helping another person, even on the phone.
Okay.
I don't care if it's just like a bill, there's just like that moment. It's just flowing. I start tearing up.
Wow.
It moves me.
Yes.
So much, because I know that this person don't actually know who they are. They don't know each other.
You're right.
But we speak like we're family. Like there's some type of relation here. And I think it's such a beautiful thing and a beautiful connection. And I would tear up, but I would hide it, Jiselle.
Wow.
I would hide it because I was like, people are going to think I'm weird. They're going to think I'm like a nerd or something. And I had to realize those were labels of things that I assumed, but weren't necessarily true.
That's
so
right.
Little by little, I would start to express myself, and those things weren't reality. It was something I made up in my head based on what I thought societal standards were.
Exactly.
So I love that you speak about perception and how you see things.
That's
because
right.
it's so interesting, as far as like, actually, I feel like this would align with the ladies in waiting. I'm really curious about that. That seems interesting.
Interesting.
I'm curious of what you come across with the identity of females and wanting to be married, and how they feel they should present themselves based on what the standards or societal ideas they have in their head.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit more about what you do there.
So let me pull it back a bit. The church, like any other structure, is an organization. And so we find that this group, single women, unmarried women, different categories. So we have unmarried, never married, we have separated, we have divorced, we have widowed, yes. And so they are all labeled, and the first struggle for this group is that loss of identity. I don't have an identity. If I've never been married, I don't have an identity. If I've been married and suffered the loss of that marriage within the organization of the church, well, I don't have an identity. And if I'm now a widow, I don't have an identity. And so the first step for this group, and one of the things that we have to keep working on, is the re-establishing of identity. So you see what our earlier thought on identity, it comes right back even to this specific group. You have to recondition your mind to find your worth, find your identity, find your role, find your values, the same words we were speaking about a moment ago. So that's the first thing I would deal with. As a lady in waiting, what's your identity? Because if you are not sure, then you come into alignment and agreement. Agreement means there is a smooth flow because we are on the same page. But if I'm not sure, there are going to be some static, and then that seeming like this, it's not going to happen because I am not sure. So we spend a lot of time working on identity, reestablishing of identity. Then pushing forward, ladies in waiting, yes, the essence is strategic preparation for marriage. And I put that word strategic for a reason. You can prepare, but then you can prepare. And I have always found that there has been a lack of proper preparation. So that when you come upon the issues of this partnership called marriage, you could easily trace it back to how well you were prepared. We go to school for so many years to prepare for our job. Why do you think that you're not going to prepare for this institution called marriage? And so we go through understanding our guideline, of course, ultimately is the Word of God, what the Word of God says about preparation. How does culture influence our thinking of preparation? What does familial culture, how does that influence? Because we have all sorts of influences coming against the strategic preparation based on our document, our guideline. And so we spend a lot of time dissecting strategic preparation. And then a third example of something we work on in the group, as I said, yes, marriage may be your desire, but how does that fit into your overall purpose for being on planet Earth? So we don't spend our entire day just, I want to get married. No. No. We're not just waiting for that.
Right.
We're in pursuit of understanding purpose. The late Dr. Miles Monroe said that we were placed here for a specific reason, and things are waiting, people are waiting, spaces are waiting for you to find out that reason. So the longer you stay to find out that reason and start functioning in that reason, they're still waiting for something that only you can do. And so these are some of the things that we focus on when we say we are a community, ladies in waiting.
Oh man, that's beautiful. Like it's so interesting. You know, I had these ladies on my other show that I was mentioning to you, and they, spoke about those similar things because and when I say similar things, I mean behaviors that we don't even know that we have, that we use in other aspects of our lives. Like we take the same framework and apply it, and we're like, I don't know why this is working. It's because it's attached.
That's right.
The foundation of identity is attached to all things.
All things.
Isn't that interesting, Giselle?
Yep. And so if the foundation is shaky and cracked and you're not taking the time to repair, well,
wow. It's just it's amazing. Like it really is amazing, like when it comes down to that. Like my mind, even up to this day, my mind is blown away by it. Because it's like I see it as like an upside down triangle.
Okay.
Like, you are at the bottom of the triangle and you build upon it with different things.
Yes.
But it stems from that point.
Still stems from that point, yeah. Yep.
Stems from that point.
Yep.
And if you don't take a look at the layers, you may not see something that is for you, that's always been there.
Yes.
But you can't see it.
That's right.
Because it's the layers.
Oops.
Wild, Giselle. Like every time I'm just like, what?
I think many women go through the aha moment. They get it. They see it. But Stacey, it is hard work.
Oh my God.
Steps of transition. And I think that's what we are not willing to do. So we prefer, let's just keep it as it is.
Yeah,
but we get it. I believe we get it. Most
Absolutely.
times
I think we all know.
Yeah.
I think we all know. It's kind of like in those moments where we ask for advice. We even formulate the question with the answer.
Yes.
Do you think I should? Bop, bop, bop.
Because you know.
You know you don't want to. Or you do. You already have the answer. You just looking for somebody. Yo, revert back. Can you tell me if I should? You're asking the wrong person. The answer was given to you already.
It's still the same.
It's still the same.
Not changing. Yep.
It's so funny. I've definitely had moments like that in my life where I'm like, you know what? Not yet. Not yet. I'm not. No, I'm not gonna do it. And then it comes back. I'm like, do I? Oh my god! I have. Oh my god! I have to. There's no other way.
No other way. No other way.
It's so interesting. You actually reminded me. There's a book that I have, and I have yet to read it. There's so many books that I have. You know, I buy them. It's almost like I'm ahead of myself. That's me.
Yeah, I buy them and I put them there. Yes.
Yep. You're like, I'm gonna read it. I'm gonna read it. I'm an avid reader. I'm sure you are. You're a librarian, aren't you?
Yes. Yes.
Oh my goodness. Is that your your past life?
That's where I left.
Okay. Oh my goodness. So actually, I have a question there. Has reading been a foundation in your upbringing? Like
always.
It was.
Yeah.
Did you read a book this morning? Kind of thing. Like, how was it embraced in your upbringing?
I have a joke. As a child, I didn't want toys. So for Christmas and for birthdays, I wanted books and puzzles. So that's what I got. And the only doll that I got was from a friend. She got 2 of the same dolls for Christmas, so she gave one to me. So that's how I got a doll. But my gifts were books. I started my personal library from a child. And so, but it wasn't a desire. Even how I got into that field was what we call an accident. I don't think it was intentional, but the seeds were planted. I could look back and see now that the seeds were planted through that desire of, I want more books. I just want books. And I would spend hours just reading.
Beautiful. Yeah, I didn't get into books until a little later on in life. My mom would always be like, you have to read.
You have to read, yes.
Yeah. I'm like, there's nothing out there for me. And then I started reading and I was like, oh my God. Like I think one of the first books that I read and enjoyed was written by, I don't know if you're familiar with Danielle Steele.
Yes, I know Danielle Steele books, yes.
Whoa. And then I went from Danielle Steele, because those are her books. Like, those are my mom's books. And I was
that you borrowed, yes.
Yeah. I was a kid. Like, what am I doing reading Danielle Steele? Like, romance and everything.
Yes.
But I was like, it was the way the story was written. And I could see it in my head. I was like, wow. Really? These are movies? Like, wow. And then I went to James Patterson.
Okay.
I believe James Patterson does a lot of crime books.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I read that and I was like, oh my, like I would just be glued. And then, I went through a period in my life where I was depressed and distracted by sadness and things like that. And my sister was reading this book by Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now. Yes. And that's where I literally woke up. It's like for the period of my life, I was asleep. Yeah. And then all of a sudden I woke up and that's when I was like, are there more books like this? And I never stopped.
Awesome.
I just never stopped. Yeah. And now here we are having this.
Your own, yes. You see? Purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. It's on purpose. Yep. Oh my goodness. So
awesome.
So it's so interesting because, the foundation of books, like, do you have a specific, so I'm assuming you still read.
I do from time to time when I get time. We always have to make time, but yes, I still do. Yes.
Is there a genre that you like?
Oh no, I read any and everything, and then it's sometimes pinned onto what I'm doing now. So now that I'm into the speaking and the mentoring and coaching, so I'm trying to get books along those lines, see what the influencers in the field they are doing. So I would read that. And of course, when I need to tap back in to my spiritual base, I have those that I would tap into. So the Joyce Meyers, of course, the TD Jakes and all of those. So it's a hodgepodge. And then I still have some of the books that I had as a child child, I don't know if you would do that, but I still like to open them up and read them,
Yeah.
just to transport me back to that place when I need to just be quiet and okay, it's going to be okay. And I spend some
Interesting.
time with, because the principles still impact my life even to today. So it's a hodgepodge. I'm all over
Yeah.
the place. And I'm the kind of person when before COVID, when I'm going through the airport, I have to stop in the airport bookshop and purchase
Yes.
a book, come home. Yeah.
Yeah. I have to actually stay away from the bookstore because I'm just like, and then it's like a pile of books. Like
That's
when
another
am-
carry
when am
on.
yeah, once you know, the iPhone and all these phones and iPads and everything came out, and then they put books on the phone.
Yes, okay.
We're
You were
done.
in a
The
mess.
budget's gone.
That's it.
The budget's gone. I'm like, and this one, and this one, and then I started speed reading.
Okay.
Oh my goodness! Do you speed read, Giselle?
No, I
Oh
like
my
to
goodness!
savor.
Savor the words, yeah.
Savor. And I'm still pretty much a print girl. I like to smell and you know, so
Yes.
yeah. So
You
I
know,
like
somebody
the
I
books
never
in
heard
my hand.
anybody else say that because I'm like, you know,
No.
books have a sense,
Yes,
and a feeling.
that's
Like
right.
different texture and pages.
Yes.
I remember the first Bible. It wasn't a Bible, but it was like this little black book. It was like something of scriptures. I think it was
Right.
like
A
a
kind of
niched
work
down
book.
version of scripture. I wonder if my parents still have it. I gotta go find that.
Uh,
But the pages, I was like, I never knew pages can make that sound and feel that way. I was like, the Bible pages, why are they different? Why are they different?
Oh, dear.
Versus say a leadership book, the pages are thicker.
Thicker, yeah.
So I think it's maybe the way it's printed, it needs a different type of paper.
Yeah,
You know,
kind of thin, yeah.
yeah, it was just very, very, very interesting. I'd like to ask this question
Sure.
to see how you feel about purpose. What is the importance of purpose to you in one's life? How important is that?
It's the epicenter.
Mm.
Pretend that you are a ship. The purpose of a ship, the thing that guides the ship is the small rudder. And so imagine that element is missing from the ship and you're out in the ocean. You'll be moving, yes, but you would not be guided. You would not be directed. And I think for many of us who are yet to tap in to their purpose, to understand it, to accept it, because some of us we understand but we don't accept. No, not yet. No, that's not me. Not me, somebody else. We will be like that ship, deluding ourselves that we are in purpose because we are moving, but we're not really accomplishing what we were placed here to do. So I strive, and when I speak to people, I encourage them, find out your purpose, accept it. I don't leave out accepting it, because you have to accept it and then get the roadmap to start moving and let that rudder guide you and direct you. So even when you go through transitions, you're still being guided. You might be redirected, but it's all part of your purpose. So it's very important. I think everyone, as a human, we want satisfaction. For many of us, we learned about Maslow's hierarchy of needs in school. Yeah, so you could create your own hierarchy of need. And I think satisfaction, fulfillment, that sense that I mean something. And again, I'm bringing back the V word, value, that I am providing value to someone. I think everyone wants that in this world, to feel needed.
Yes.
But you can't get that satisfaction without understanding your purpose and what drives you and what makes you get up in the morning, Stacy. And even when things are not going so well, you are still comforted to know that this is still purpose. I'm still on purpose. So it's very, very important. I can't imagine myself just living, moving, doing things,
Right.
but
Oh my
so
God.
what? So what? After a while, everyone would stop and look around and say, What's the meaning of all this?
Yeah, it's so interesting. I remember that part of my life too. Before I transitioned to that, I think what you said was a very, like that was an amazing visualization that I received. So thank you for that. I think, before I was like, okay, just go get a job, just, something, okay. I looked at the company, I'm like, it had those things like, the retirement and the this and then that. And that's all I was looking at. I wasn't looking at, does this align with my values? Does it align with my purpose? Does it align with my principles? And I think that's the thing we don't always know what they are. We develop them.
Yes.
And I think that's what happens. And as soon as you start to develop and understand, maybe that's why this didn't fit well with me, or, maybe this is why, then we're like, I do have values. I do have principles or a code that I follow.
Standards,
Yeah, those standards. It's so interesting. You just said the magic word. Now I want to know, how do you deal with, I'm sure this comes up, especially in the ladies when waiting group, or just dealing with women in general. How do you handle the discussion of standards? I'm going to segue off of that too a little bit.
Sure.
Because sometimes I know here, and let me know if you receive this down there too, some women are told that their standards are too high. You're laughing. Tell me about it, Jiselle. What's going on there?
I have a different view. I teach my ladies a different perspective. We look at it in a tad different perspective, and I'll explain why. We've had this conversation. Number one, I don't jump on taglines, and I don't jump on things that are trending now. So up until this point, what's trending is the word standards as it relates to women, and your standards, and you must set your standards, and and some of you have too low standards, and your standards have to be high, and I have no issues with that. There is a place, a context, and a way to set your standards. What I find, and my concern is that it is the talk about setting standards comes from a selfish place of what I can get from the other party. We may be speaking about a relationship now, but what you can get could apply to any kind of relationship. And attached to that, your non-negotiables, and you pull out your long list. These are my non-negotiable, and if you don't check every single one from 1 to 1,000, bye-bye. I flip the coin when I speak to the ladies about it. Firstly, again, our guidelines come from the Word of God, and we have examples. How does God instruct us in setting standards? Setting of standards is not pinned on a relationship. Setting of standards is a personal thing pinned on your relationship with God. And so there are standards and guidelines on how you should live, Stacy. And so your first question is, are you living according to those guidelines? How do you deal with people? How do you treat your people? There are examples, for example, the Beatitudes, yes? Are you following some of these things? Are you living in love? Are you practicing kindness? Are you showing forgiveness? These are the standards that as a single woman, as a human being, you need to be developing in your life. So when it comes now to looking outward at somebody else, you should mirror those standards and not expect the person, to have all these standards when you are nowhere close. So we try to put the mirror on ourselves And what we expect in a partner, make sure that it's evident in your life, because believe it or not, that person is also looking for evidence of those
Right.
said things. And as I said before, I think I can't remember what point I was trying to make. Culture tends to come in and cloud our interpretation of scripture. And so the world's stance on having standards is that he has to be making a certain salary, he has to be driving a certain car, he has to be living in a certain area, he has to be able to do X for you, he has to be able to do Y for you. Now, don't get me wrong, I am not saying that you just throw caution to the wind and grab anything. But
Right.
my point is, you expect this long list from someone else. What are you bringing to the table? That's where your focus on standards should be. And out of that would be the outflow setting of
Yes.
correct standards, so you will know how to recognize if someone is not for you based on your standards, your values, what you have already set for yourself.
Yes.
So that's how I like to force them to look at it, rather than the "what can you do for me lately?"
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I like to twist it, because it can't sound as if it's coming like
Yes.
that.
Yes.
And it's to me, that doesn't represent God and a lady in waiting.
love it.
She's not a gold digger.
Right.
It's not becoming. And we're not into this independence thing, but no, it's not becoming.
Right. You
No,
know,
no.
I'm so glad that question came up for me
Yes.
in our conversation, because you know, I do use some of those words and non-negotiable and things like that, but I love the way you put it, because I've always mentioned to people that, you know, what I've seen in my journey is that you attract a lot of what you're showing in relationships, business, whatever it is. In that moment of your life, you are radiating that energy, and it's
That's
coming
right.
back to you, because the universe is a giant mirror.
That's right.
And it's so interesting, because and the thing is, the way I kind of realized that is because I started to change.
Okay.
I started to change. And I said, wait a minute, I don't like this, or whatever this was. I'm just saying this
Yes.
as an example. But and then my next question, which I heard from a TV show. I was watching I forget the name of the TV show, but watching The Punisher on Netflix. And there was a part in the show, he was just like, what are you gonna do about it?
Okay.
What are you gonna do about it? And that his voice comes up to me every once in a while. And I'm like, that's a good question. What am I going to do about it?
What are you going to do about it? Yeah.
And I realized, I was like, oh, I have to change. I
Yes.
have to change, or align with what is being sent to me, but I had trouble receiving, you see?
Wow.
So I had to realize that. I was like, oh, okay. I was holding up a wall. There was a wall, like, don't touch me, get away from me. Like, don't,
Yes.
nope, love, nope. Because I thought I was unworthy of it.
So you had to start with you.
Yep.
You had to, yeah. And
Yeah.
then you started
All
to
of a sudden.
realize new things, different things coming at
Everything.
you.
Everything.
Okay, all right. That's all
Yeah.
I had to do before? Okay. That's all.
What? And like you said before, it is a journey. It is
Yeah.
work. It is hard work at times, but there are certain
Consistent
things that
work.
will flow effortlessly,
That's right.
because it is you operating. For some reason, the foundation tree came up in my head when I was listening to you. But it's like, that is your fruit tree. And you cannot bear fruit if you are not adding to that foundation, which is your water, your heart, your sun, whatever it is. You
Right.
cannot bear fruit if you do not operate out of yourself.
That's right. That's right. And you see, Stacey, standards are for you. These
Right.
glasses have a prescription made for me. So I see through them and it helps me to see things clearly. But if these were the wrong prescription, they would cloud my vision. So when we speak about standards from the outside in and not from the inside out, the coming from the inside, we're seeing it through the lenses, the correct lenses for us. And so we won't be putting unrealistic expectations on others because we are seeing incorrectly. And that's
Yes.
why I spin it around. I say your standards are for you. You look inward. Make sure that your standards map what God says about standards. And so that, as you said, when you function and you start to flow in those standards, you will attract the correct people to you. But if you're looking outward in and forgetting about yourself, you will be clouded and attracted to and distracted by the wrong things. And that's when we get disappointed. Our expectations get corrupted, and we put unrealistic projections on persons that we ourselves don't even meet. And I think it's wrong. I think it's wrong. And it's a kind of anti-kingdom culture way of going about it. And so that's how we discuss this topic of standards, having standards.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, it's really interesting how it always reverts back to the person,
Always.
and and how they are operating. I mentioned to some folks, I'm like, you ground first. You ground first. Like, we talk, like, we got like an antenna. The antenna needs to be grounded.
Yes.
So if you're out here, just walking around with your antenna all loose, like, you're gonna get shocked.
Yep.
You're gonna get shocked, but you need to be grounded first. Then
the
Yep.
frequency. The frequency will be correct. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Yes.
it's so interesting because a lot of people like to. It's so interesting. So do you know or hear about Brene Brown?
No, I've never heard about.
Oh my
no.
God! When you listen to her, you can be like, yes, yes.
Okay.
So Brene Brown is a researcher in like emotions and business and trust and belonging. She's written great books like Dare to Lead and Daring Greatly. I think you would be like, yes.
I look up.
Yeah, but I love this conversation because it really shows how, like, I know even for me or others, sometimes we get a little misguided by the idea or sense of belonging.
Yeah.
And what ends up happening is we force ourselves. Imagine, like how you say you like to do puzzles. We know we don't. We know deep down, deep down. Yeah, we don't fit. You could turn the piece left, right. We can turn it all over the place. You over here trying to just shove it in. It doesn't fit.
Doesn't fit. Yeah.
It doesn't fit. How much of your conversations are about belonging, and how do you discuss that?
That goes right back to the beginning of your transition, because that separation is described in research as a type of death. The same way you would grieve the death of a loved one, you grieve the separation from that thing, whatever it is. In my case, it was a job. In someone's case, it could be a divorce. In another case, it could be just moving state is a separation. And so you grieve the separation. You grieve what you are leaving behind, because therein lay your sense of belonging. And so you have to create again, and it's the fear of creating a new identity, the sense of creating a new space, just like that puzzle. You have to carve out a new space again. It scares people.
Yeah.
And so We really have to work. And what happens in a transition, we know we have to get to the next space and we want to do it quickly. We come on, come on.
Yeah.
And we skip over all the emotional element. And so what we are doing, we are taking some time to deal with the emotion. Because you said it earlier, Stacy, because what will happen if you don't deal with the emotion of this separation, you repeat. And you keep repeating. And the purpose of transition management is to get better at transitioning, better at navigating. So you're being able to now to go through the steps of competency development, of emotional analysis, and then creating your transition plan for whatever transition we will face. Because as long as we live, we will be in a transition at one time or the other, and your goal is to get better and better at it. So it doesn't take you 2 years like it did me. You would deal with the emotional fallout first, and then you start your progress. But that is part of that emotional fallout, that sense of belonging because of the separating that takes place at the beginning of your transition.
Yeah, it's so interesting, what we do to belong, and when we start to realize that that was like a false identity in a sense, and then we start to find ourselves, maybe that's just part of the process.
Part of the process sometimes, yeah.
Oh my goodness. Giselle, do you have anything else you'd like to add to this amazing, beautiful, well-packaged conversation?
Oh my God, we could go on and on. I just want to tell folks, don't be afraid of transition, and you have to embrace it. You have to understand that it's part of your process while you're here on planet Earth, and your job to become a better person, to come into that place of maturity is understanding your transitions and navigating through them well, seamlessly. So don't be afraid. We're still in the throes of a pandemic, and so for all of us, we are in a transition, whatever flavor of transition it may mean for you. Don't be afraid. Be very strategic about it. Be very calculated about it, and start doing what you need to do to navigate through this transition. Because on the other side of transition is still purpose. I must end with purpose and encouraging you to find it, accept it, and start moving in your purpose. But get through your transition.
Yes. Oh my God. Thank you so much, Giselle.
Oh my God. This was awesome.
Yeah, oh my God, amazing.
Awesome.
Thank you. I'm so
welcome.
grateful. I'm so glad that we connected.
Yes.
There were some other things that we're going to have you on another time so we can dig into this PhD, because I wanted to talk about that. You're like, oh God. Yeah, but you know what? You were called for it. So I'm just like, oh my God, I want to know what that study is about.
Yes.
We're going to have to do it another time, but
we will.
Where can we find you on social media, website? What's going on?
So I'm on all social media platforms. So Pearls of Great Price Empowerment Services. You can look for that, and you will find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn. Pearls of Great Price Empowerment Services. If you're listening and you're a single Christian lady and you're looking for a community where we adhere to the core values of sisterhood, transparency, and accountability, look us up, Ladies in Waiting on Facebook. It's a private Facebook group, and we'll be happy to have you a part of our community. If you want to email me to get some more material from me about Pearls of Great Price Empowerment Services, that email address is pearlsofgreatprice1@gmail.com. Again, pearlsofgreatprice1@gmail.com. And Stacy, I have a gift for all your listeners who email me. I have a free ebook called The Journey of Self-Discovery, and it speaks about transitioning through your journey and discovering the self through that transition. So if they are interested in getting their hands on that ebook, email me again, pearlsofgreatprice1@gmail.com.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for that offer.
No
I know there are
problem.
many people, especially during this pandemic or
Yes.
the loss of someone or something or their identity. Oh my goodness. People can be so overwhelmed in times
Yeah,
like this.
yes,
So I
yes.
know that I feel confident based on our discussion that your book can help a lot of people.
Awesome, awesome.
Oh
Yes.
my goodness, Giselle, thank you so much again for
Thank
being on
you.
Price on Purpose. This has been an amazing
Yes.
discussion. I'm going to pick this discussion apart later. I like to replay these, like, that was a
Okay.
great point there. But also, I'll put all the links that you mentioned. I'll put it
Right.
in the show notes, of
Sure.
course. You have your own show, so it's like,
Yes,
all right, we're gonna
yes.
get to typing, baby. So thank you so much again. And
No
I look
problem.
forward to in the near future having you on again.
Yes, thank you, Stacy.
Thank you
Awesome.
so much.
Okay.